Picture a living room somewhere in America. The television is on in the background, running a late-cycle news ticker. Tensions overseas climbing again. Oil markets twitching with every headline. Global shipping lanes cracking under a weight nobody warned the average homeowner about. Nobody is really watching the screen. The eyes in that room keep drifting, one way or another, back to a gun safe standing in the corner. Inside that safe, $3,000 of centerfire steel. Camouflage patterns that cost more than most first trucks. Optics that were marketed as battle-ready by men in suits who have never spent a night outdoors. And a growing, quiet realization settling in. But the brass burning through those chambers at $1.80 a round is not going to be on the shelves this time next year. HuntForge needs to be honest with you. The multi-billion-dollar hunting and tactical industry, a market valued at over $19 billion in recent reporting, has sold an entire generation of American hunters a meticulously crafted lie. The lie goes something like this: that the rifle which costs the most must be the one that lasts the longest. That polymer is progress. The disposable magazines and cast aluminum receivers are somehow the future of a tradition that used to be measured in generations, not warranty periods. What the industry buried is the 8-cent round. The humble .22 long rifle cartridge. 8 cents versus $1.80. 2,000 rounds stacked quietly in a shoebox versus 100 rounds locked away in a steel case the size of a small refrigerator. The industry buried it because the industry cannot sell a $40 a month subscription to a cartridge your grandfather used to carry loose in his shirt pocket, alongside a pocket knife and a folded handkerchief.
Your grandfather never needed a $2,500 Magnum rifle and a 3-page catalog of aftermarket replacement parts to put meat on the family table or keep predators off his chickens. He knew something the modern firearms industry has spent 4 decades trying to make every American hunter forget. Welcome to HuntForge. Pour a cup of coffee, settle in, and prepare to have the veil ripped off. Today, the hunt is for the one single .22 long rifle that can actually be bet on. Not for one season, not for one decade, but for the next 40 years of American life. Whatever that life happens to look like. In a genuine supply-constrained scenario, and the evidence that such scenarios are possible is now overwhelming rather than theoretical, stealth and absolute mechanical permanence become the only 2 currencies with any real purchasing power. The industry pushes louder, faster, heavier. The wildlife and the historical record push back. Consider the published research from the Mississippi State University Deer Ecology and Management Laboratory. Acoustic startle response studies show that the pressure wave generated by a high-velocity centerfire cartridge, such as the .308 Winchester or the 5.56 NATO, does not merely spook the individual animal downrange. It creates an acoustic footprint measured across multiple kilometers, altering the movement patterns of entire deer populations and driving surviving animals into strictly nocturnal feeding windows for days afterward. The decibel math is brutal. A standard .308 Winchester round, unsuppressed, registers around 167 decibels at the muzzle, within the range documented by hearing conservation research as capable of causing permanent auditory damage to an unprotected shooter. A subsonic .22 long rifle cartridge, fired from a cold hammer-forged barrel with modern match-grade ammunition, measures closer to 112 decibels, comparable to a loud hand clap. In a scarcity environment, that 55 decibel difference is not an audio footnote. It is the difference between harvesting a single squirrel and announcing a shooter's exact location to every coyote, every deer, and every human being within a 3-mile radius. The .22 long rifle, fired subsonic,
moves through the woods the way the old market hunters used to say a good rifle should move, like a rumor. It is the surgical scalpel of the forest. It permits the harvesting of small game, the controlled removal of predators, and, in a true grid-down scenario with careful shot placement, the ethical taking of larger game,
without broadcasting a mile-wide alert to every creature capable of fleeing or retaliating. But here is the catch. The survivalist marketing crowd conveniently omits. While the .22 long rifle is a logistical miracle, a man can carry 2,000 rounds in a backpack without noticing the weight. Rimfire ammunition is documented to have a significantly higher dud rate than centerfire. Industry quality control data places typical rimfire failure rates at roughly 1 in every 500 rounds under standard conditions, and considerably higher with aged or improperly stored stock. When a round fails to fire, the rifle holding it must be able to cycle that round out brutally, instantly, without question. Most of the .22s sitting in American gun safes tonight were never designed for decades of hard, unsupported use. They were designed for warm summer afternoons and factory-fresh ammunition.
A throwaway culture has been carefully engineered around American firearms ownership. Things are designed to break so that they must be bought again. The polymer triggers, the stamped steel lockwork, the V-block barrel attachments. Each one of these engineering shortcuts represents a deliberate choice made in a boardroom, not a workshop. What happens to that ecosystem when the container ships stop moving? Consider the Winchester Model 190. For many American men, this is the rifle that stood behind a father's back door or hung on 2 pegs over a grandfather's workbench. The nostalgia is real, and it is earned. But nostalgia is a dangerous guide when resources begin to contract. The Model 190 utilizes an alloy receiver to keep the retail price competitive. Over decades of use, the steel bolt reciprocating inside that aluminum channel generates unavoidable galling and wear. The trigger assembly, a stamped, over-engineered cluster of spring-loaded components, presents the real nightmare. In a harsh environment, if one small spring fractures in the mud, no basic toolkit will return that rifle to service. A generation of veteran gunsmiths who trained before the polymer era will confirm that this was among the most common, unsalvageable .22 repairs of the late 20th century. Consider the undisputed icon of the American rimfire world, the Ruger 1022. It sits in nearly every gun safe in the country. The rotary magazine was a genuine stroke of engineering genius in its era, and the aftermarket support surrounding this platform is now so vast that a complete rifle can be built from third-party components without using a single original Ruger part. That same popularity is hiding a long-term structural flaw. With global conflicts straining specialty manufacturing and shipping lanes, that aftermarket network is a luxury that cannot be assumed to exist forever. Factory 1022s use cast aluminum receivers and injection-molded polymer trigger housings.
The barrel is secured by a V-block clamp rather than threaded directly into the receiver, a design choice that trades lifetime accuracy for manufacturing speed. The rotary magazine relies on internal spring tension that measurably weakens after extended round counts, and full field cleaning of that magazine is not a task the average hunter can complete with a knife and a handkerchief. The 1022 is a fantastic rifle. Its survival value collapses the precise moment the supply chain stops shipping replacement parts. What the industry buried beneath 40 years of catalog gloss is the simple, inconvenient truth. A rifle built to be repaired is worth 10 rifles built to be replaced.
In a total collapse of the global supply chain, nobody will be strolling into a sporting goods store to buy neat, organized bricks of high-velocity ammunition. Scavenging becomes the norm. A handful of .22 short from an estate sale, some .22 long from a damp basement a neighbor cleared out in 1984. Standard long rifle rounds hoarded in ammo cans. Most semi-automatic .22s will refuse this mixed diet entirely, because their blowback actions require the specific back pressure of standard long rifle cartridges to cycle reliably. Feed them anything else, and they transform into a frustrating single-shot paperweight. This is where the Remington Model 552 Speedmaster earns a permanent place in the conversation. Its floating chamber design, an engineering solution patented in the early 20th century and refined across decades of production, reliably feeds and cycles .22 short, .22 long, and .22 long rifle interchangeably in any loading order a hunter chooses. A short followed by a long rifle will cycle flawlessly without a single mechanical adjustment. That flexibility is not a marketing bullet point. It is one of the most valuable long-term survival features ever engineered into an American rimfire. The Marlin Model 60 deserves its own paragraph. Millions upon millions were produced, and they were built to ride the floor of farm trucks from Georgia to Montana, absorbing dust, rust, and decades of casual neglect without a recorded mass failure. Its quiet survival genius lies in the brass tubular magazine running beneath the barrel. In a severe crisis, a detachable box magazine is a genuine liability. Dropped once in thick brush at a dead run, it transforms a semi-automatic rifle into a cumbersome single shot. The Model 60 eliminates that scenario entirely. The tube cannot be misplaced. The brass construction resists corrosion beautifully, even in the salt, humid air of coastal climates where steel magazines quietly rot inside a year. What the industry buried beneath modern polymer magazine upgrades was the century-old recognition that integral tubular magazines survive what detachable magazines cannot. Anyone who has spent a working life coveting grease, sawdust, or diesel fuel understands, at an instinctive level, the enduring value of a purely mechanical tool. This is the territory of the Henry Classic lever action, and of every lever action .22 that has ever been chambered for the round. In a dark, unforgiving environment, the mechanical advantage of a lever-action rifle cannot be overstated. The analogy is to an old four-wheel drive truck with a manual transmission. It does not rely on delicate computer sensors, electronic fuel injection, or proprietary diagnostic equipment. It simply requires a hand on the wheel and a foot on the clutch. A semi-automatic rifle is entirely dependent on the chemical energy of each individual cartridge to extract the spent brass and reset the hammer. If scavenged ammunition is weak, corroded, or contaminated with decades of moisture exposure, the gun fails silently and suddenly, usually at the worst possible moment. A lever action removes that dependency completely. The shooter is the engine. The shooter's forearm provides the brute mechanical force required to extract, eject, and chamber. Subsonic ammunition, high-velocity ammunition, degraded ammunition pulled from a cobwebbed garage corner. Every round cycles, because the cycling is happening through direct human leverage rather than through the delicate chemistry of combustion. The physical act of racking a lever backward forces dirt, carbon, rust, and grit out of the action with every cycle. It does not request permission to function. It does not wait for the correct lubricant. The Henry Classic lever action, in particular, uses a brass receiver that resists corrosion in ways no cast aluminum semi-auto can match. Cold weather field testing, documented across decades of North American trapping literature, confirms that lever actions continue cycling at temperatures where semi-automatic lubricants have long since turned to a gummy paste. It is driven by physical leverage, which makes it uniquely suited to environments where gun oil and modern solvents may simply not be available for years at a time. But what about the hunter whose primary concern is the consistent, ethical, undeniable harvesting of meat on a modest budget?
What about the hunter for whom every cartridge is a precious, irreplaceable unit of potential food? This is where the Savage Mark II enters the conversation with quiet authority. When every individual round represents a meal that cannot be replaced, the entire philosophy of shooting changes. Spray and pray is no longer an option. It was never really an option. But scarcity exposes the fact with unusual brutality. Every pull of the trigger must guarantee dinner. Bolt-action rifles are inherently more durable than their semi-automatic counterparts because they lock up like a bank vault on each round. There are no gas tubes to foul, no blowback systems to collect carbon, no recoil springs to progressively weaken. All the chemical energy released by the rimfire cartridge is directed forward, out of the barrel, maximizing velocity and minimizing the erratic energy loss that plagues self-loading designs. Consider extreme weather. When ambient temperatures drop below freezing, the petroleum-based lubricants in most semi-automatic actions thicken into a substance closer to honey than oil. The action sluggishly fails, and the shooter is left staring at a rifle that refuses to cycle at the exact moment winter protein matters most. A bolt action laughs at the cold. The shooter grabs that heavy steel bolt handle, cracks through the ice with pure mechanical force, and runs the gun as if nothing has changed. When a dud round is encountered, and in a scavenging scenario dud rounds will be encountered, the bolt is ripped backward with direct human leverage, the failed cartridge is ejected, and a fresh round is seated in the chamber without drama or diagnostic. The engineering brilliance of the Savage Mark II is its brutal simplicity combined with the now legendary Acoutrigger system, delivering a crisp,
Glass-like break that gives any competent shooter the confidence to take small game with precise headshots at 50 to 100 yards. That is yield maximization paired with expenditure minimization. The exact formula that defined American subsistence hunting for nearly 2 centuries before the marketing departments got involved.
Pay close attention now, because what follows is going to ruffle some feathers and make more than a few American manufacturers deeply uncomfortable.
The absolute best survival .22 long rifle in current production does not come from an American factory. It comes from the Czech Republic. It is the CZ457. Over the last 3 decades, as domestic manufacturers quietly replaced their forged steel components with injection-molded polymers and stamped sheet metal, saving a handful of dollars per unit on the assembly line in exchange for measurable reductions in service life, Česká zbrojovka simply refused to make those compromises. The company continued to build firearms approximately the way serious firearms were built in 1965 because the engineers in Uherský Brod understood something the American marketing departments had apparently forgotten. A rifle is not a disposable consumer good. A rifle is a multi-generational tool. When the possibility exists that a hunter may never again have the opportunity to purchase another rifle in his lifetime, the correct engineering answer is not cost optimization. The correct answer is permanence. The correct answer is undeniable, uncompromising reliability. The receiver of the CZ457 is milled from a solid billet of high-grade ordnance steel. Not cast, not stamped, milled. There are no cheap cast alloys to develop stress fractures under sustained use. No polymer sleeves that degrade under ultraviolet exposure. The barrel is cold hammer forged, a manufacturing process in which a steel blank is pounded into final dimension around a hardened mandrel, creating a dramatically denser grain structure and a measurably more durable bore that maintains pinpoint match-grade accuracy across tens of thousands of rounds. Independent metallurgical analysis of hammer-forged barrels consistently documents surface hardness values exceeding cast and drilled barrels
by roughly 20 to 30%. ACZ-457, purchased in 2026, will still drive tacks at 50 yards when the current owner's great-grandchildren inherit it. The bolt uses a short, fast 60-degree throw, allowing rapid cycling even when a full-size optic is mounted directly above the action. The firing pin features a flat upper face specifically designed to prevent striker-tip damage against the chamber entrance, a detail that exists in no current American production .22 at a comparable price point. The trigger is fully adjustable from the factory without special tools, from a crisp 2-pound target brake to a heavier 3.5-pound field pull. The undeniable genius of the CZ-457, the feature that transforms it from a very good rifle into a survival-grade generational tool, is its extreme modularity. The barrels are entirely user-interchangeable with a single Allen wrench. The standard .22 long rifle barrel can be removed and swapped for a .22 Winchester Magnum rimfire barrel or a .17 Hornady Magnum rimfire barrel in less than 5 minutes of kitchen table work. If a hunter is scavenging in a broken supply environment and every long rifle shelf has been picked clean, but a dusty box of .22 Magnum is discovered in an abandoned hunting cabin, this rifle adapts to the available ammunition rather than demanding the ammunition adapt to it. No other .22 in current production combines that level of caliber flexibility with this degree of structural integrity. Yes, the rifle requires a real financial commitment, approximately $550 for the base configuration. Now consider the math against a $2,500 fragile centerfire safe queen, whose ammunition cannot be reliably sourced for $8 a round. The cost comparison is not even a conversation. It is a surrender. When a shooter's hands close around the deep-blued solid steel and the hand-finished walnut of the CZ-457, the price becomes almost entirely irrelevant.
What is held is the direct mechanical answer to the quiet, terrifying question that keeps serious hunters awake at night. What happens when the last gunsmith who understands this rifle is no longer alive to save it? The answer, in this case, is that the rifle requires almost no saving. It simply runs. Return now to that living room. The television is still running in the background. The news has not gotten better, and nothing about the current trajectory suggests it is going to. The gun safe is still standing in the corner. But the safe looks different now, doesn't it? Huntforge needs to be honest with you one final time. Somewhere in the recent history of American hunting, a generation of hunters lost a winter to the exact kind of cast alloy, polymer-triggered, magazine-dependent rifle that a magazine cover told them was modern and tactical. That generation discovered, at 14 degrees below freezing, what the physics textbooks would have told them for free. That injection-molded components shrink, that stamped steel springs fracture, and that a trigger group designed in an air-conditioned office in 2016 was never meant to survive a Montana January. Some of those hunters walked home empty-handed. Some of them told their wives that everything was fine. Everything was not fine. It took that generation 3 broken rifles and 6 wasted seasons to finally understand what their grandfathers had already known, that the real weapon was never the one the industry had been selling them. What the industry buried beneath every glossy catalog and every $80 magazine ad was the almost forgotten idea that a single rifle, purchased once, cleaned by hand, oiled seasonally, and passed forward in a cedar case, could feed 4 generations of the same family. The industry buried it because the industry cannot put 4 generations on a quarterly earnings call. 4 generations of one family using one rifle is, from a modern corporate perspective, a catastrophic failure of the business model. Your grandfather never asked what was tactical. He asked what would still be shooting, cleanly and accurately, when his grandson's grandson finally inherited the key to the safe. ACZ 457 answers that question. A forged steel receiver answers that question.
A cold hammer forged barrel answers that question. An 8-cent cartridge carried loose in a shirt pocket answers that question. So here is the declaration that needs making. Hitting subscribe on this channel is not about supporting a YouTube creator. It is about casting a vote for the kind of American hunter who still exists in 2035 and 2045 and 2060. The hunter who owns less, knows more, and who never once had to ask permission from a container ship or a corporate catalog to put meat on his family's table. Subscribing is an act of joining a brotherhood of truth holders dedicated to protecting the authentic heritage of the wild. Nothing more, nothing less. Coming next on Hunt Forge. The hunt shifts from the rifle itself to the ammunition feeding it. Because a perfect forged steel .22 sitting next to the wrong cartridge in a damp basement for 10 years is still, mechanically speaking, a paperweight with a wooden handle. The question of what survives in storage and what quietly turns to dust while the owner isn't looking is the next chapter of this story. Do not miss it. Stay forged. Stay loaded. See you in the woods.